Welcome to Cheat Confessions. Let's get started with today's story. The doctor asked me to step into his office, closed the door, turned around, and his hands were shaking. I had known Marcus Webb for 11 years. Watched him deliver devastating news to broken people without losing his composure once. Steady hands. Steady voice. That was the man I knew. So when I saw him grip the edge of his desk like he needed something solid to hold on to, I already knew, before a single word left his mouth. This wasn't a medical problem. This was a marriage problem. But you need to understand what I built before you understand what she tried to destroy. My name is Daniel Croft. I'm 41. I grew up in East Millhaven, a Rust Belt city that looks like ambition packed its bags decades ago and never looked back. My father laid pipe for the county until his knees gave out at 54. My mother cleaned office buildings 3 nights a week on top of her day job. They worked themselves down to nothing and left me one thing: the understanding that nobody is coming to save you. You build your own way out, or you don't get out. I started Croft & Sons Construction at 26. No sons yet. Just a name that sounded trustworthy and the desperate hope I could grow into it. 1 truck. 2 employees. A second-hand laptop. By 35, I had 4 divisions running across 2 states. By 40, Croft & Sons was the largest independent contractor in the Millhaven region. The kind of company that gets written up in business journals. The kind of story people point to when they want to believe hard work still means something. I never called it a dream. I called it Tuesday. 16 years ago, I married Vivian Hale. She was 27. The kind of woman who commands every room she enters without appearing to try. Daughter of a city councilman. Raised with expectations she wore like jewelry. Sharp, magnetic, completely comfortable spending money she hadn't earned. I told myself that was just her upbringing. That love would smooth the edges. That I could build something sturdy enough to hold both of us. I was always better at building than seeing what was rotting underneath. We had Eli. He's 15 now. My jaw, her eyes, more emotional intelligence than either of us deserved to pass on. Varsity soccer. Decent grades. The single reason I kept myself together through everything that followed. 6 months ago, Vivian told me she was pregnant. And something in my chest went cold. I should have been happy. I need you to understand that because it matters. A second child after years of trying. After losses that neither of us spoke about anymore because the grief had hardened into something we just quietly carried. A late pregnancy should have felt like a door reopening. Like grace arriving when we'd stopped expecting it. It didn't feel like that. There was a weight behind my sternum that arrived the moment she told me and never moved. Not excitement. Not relief. Just cold, structural unease I couldn't name and couldn't shake. The kind of knowing your body has before your brain admits what it already understands. I watched Vivian those first weeks and kept waiting for the feeling to pass. It didn't pass. It got heavier. She changed. Not in ways a high-risk pregnancy at 38 might reasonably explain. Those changes I could have accepted. No. She changed direction entirely. She became someone existing at a slight angle to me. Present in the house but pointed somewhere else. Like there was a conversation happening just outside my hearing that she was always half tuned into. Her phone started living face down on every surface. She took calls in the driveway. Came home from errands without the things she'd claimed to buy. Smiled at her screen with a softness that hadn't been directed at me in longer than I wanted to calculate. She stopped asking about my work. Stopped sitting close without a reason. Stopped reaching for my hand in the small automatic way she had for years, that I only noticed when she stopped. I told myself pregnancy, anxiety, the weight of our history making her withdrawn. I constructed explanations the way I construct buildings. Carefully, with the specific intention of making something stand up that maybe didn't deserve to. My business partner Ray DeLuca has known me since we were 19. He runs the financial side of Croft & Sons. Reads people the way I read blueprints. Fast, accurate, without sentiment. His wife Nina ran into Vivian at a downtown restaurant 3 months into the pregnancy. Vivian was with a man Nina didn't recognize. Sitting close. Too close for anything professional. When Nina raised her hand to wave, Vivian's entire body flinched. Ray told me Thursday evening. Beer in hand. That careful tone men use when they're carrying something they wish they didn't have to deliver. She's off, Dan. Something isn't right. I finished my beer and said nothing. But I stopped constructing explanations. And I started paying attention. The appointment was Wednesday morning. Vivian barely slept the night before. I heard her moving through the house at 2 a.m., at 3, at 4:15. When I asked if she was okay, she said the baby was restless. Her voice was flat and precisely calibrated. The voice of someone delivering a prepared answer rather than a real one. I recognized it because I'd been listening to prepared answers for months without admitting that's what they were. She didn't eat breakfast. Sat pushing food around her plate, checking her phone every 90 seconds. When I suggested lunch afterward to mark the occasion, she gave a small nod that didn't reach her eyes. No warmth. No anticipation. Just the performance of a woman going through motions she needed to survive. In the waiting room she sat upright, hands folded over her stomach, eyes fixed on nothing. Not nervous the way expectant mothers are nervous. Braced. Like someone waiting for a verdict they already know is coming and are simply trying to pre-absorb the impact of. Marcus Webb came out before I was called in. He asked me to step into his private office. He closed the door. He gripped the edge of his desk. And his hands were shaking. 11 years of knowing this man. Through Eli's birth. Through the losses that followed. Through every hard conversation a family doctor navigates across a decade with the same patients. Not once in 11 years had I seen Marcus Webb's hands shake. I sat down. Daniel. He stopped. Collected himself visibly. Started again. What I'm about to tell you is going to be very hard. But you deserve the truth, and I won't insult you by softening it. He walked me through the measurements. Bone density. Organ development. Gestational calculations that establish fetal age with medical certainty. The numbers identified a conception window. A specific window. I was in Pittsburgh during that window. 3 straight weeks on the largest contract Croft & Sons had ever been awarded. Calling Vivian every night from my hotel room. Counting down the days home. The conception date, Marcus said quietly, does not align with your presence in Millhaven. The room didn't spin. It just went very still. Are you certain? I've run these calculations 3 separate times. There is no alternative interpretation. He looked at me the way men look at each other when words fall completely short. You're a decent man, Daniel. Whatever you decide next, protect yourself. Protect your son. I sat with that for 30 seconds. Then I asked to see the data myself. I'm a construction man. My entire professional life runs on measurements. Load-bearing calculations. Structural tolerances down to the millimeter. Numbers either hold or they don't. There is no gray area in structural integrity. There was no gray area in what Marcus Webb showed me on that screen. The child Vivian was carrying was not mine. I walked back into the exam room. She looked up from the table and her expression removed every remaining doubt. Not surprise. Not confusion. The terrified recognition of a woman watching the moment she had been dreading arrive exactly on schedule. She had known this appointment was the risk. Had been living inside that fear for months while smiling over dinner and sleeping beside me and performing a marriage she had already mentally left. Her mouth opened. I shook my head. Once. We drove home in complete silence. Eli was at school. The house was empty and loud with everything neither of us was saying. I sat across from her at the kitchen table where we'd shared 16 years of ordinary meals and looked at the woman I had believed in completely. I felt something I hadn't expected. Not rage. Something colder. More structural. The feeling of a man handed the final piece of evidence in a case that suddenly makes every previous piece make perfect sense. Cold. Clarifying. Final. Tell me his name. She cried first. For a long time. I sat across from her and let her because I was already somewhere else in my head. Already measuring. Already calculating. already doing what I do when something needs to be understood and then fixed. His name was Cole Merritt, Regional Development Director for a national property company. Wealthy in the performance way. The suits, the car, the confident posture of a man who has learned that looking successful is often indistinguishable from being successful. They'd met at a fundraising event 8 months ago, twice a week at a hotel 20 minutes outside the city. She told me everything, with the exhaustion of someone who has carried something so heavy for so long that confession arrives almost as relief. I listened to every word. I said almost nothing. When she finished, I stood up, walked to my office, and closed the door quietly behind me. Then I opened my laptop, because that is what I do when there is a problem that needs solving. I get to work. Within 48 hours, I knew more about Cole Merritt than he probably considered knowable. Ray has a contact. Former law enforcement. A private investigator named Garrett with a professional reputation built entirely on discretion and complete truth, regardless of what it costs the person receiving it. I called Ray Thursday morning. Told him I needed Garrett. Told him why. Ray asked no questions. He made the call within the hour. 72 hours later, Garrett delivered documentation that transformed cold calculation into something sharper. Cole and Vivian had been meeting at the Harlan Suites, executive floor, every Tuesday and Thursday for 8 months. Paid for through a secondary account linked to our joint finances that Vivian had opened without mentioning it to me. 8 months of hotel receipts, time-stamped photographs, financial records showing the full scope of everything moved without my knowledge. Then Garrett found something worse than the affair. Vivian had been consulting a divorce attorney for 4 months. Not reactively, proactively. She had a plan. File immediately after the baby's birth. Pursue equitable distribution of everything Croft & Sons had built across 15 years. She and Cole had already viewed apartments in the city, already calculated what the settlement would yield, already begun designing a life they intended to fund with what she would extract from mine. She wasn't having an affair. She was executing a business plan, and I was the asset she intended to liquidate. I called my attorney Claire Hoover immediately, told her I needed the company protected, every asset restructured, every exposure eliminated through every legitimate legal mechanism available. Monday morning, Claire said, we'll make it airtight. Then I looked more carefully at Cole Merritt's construction projects. Garrett pulled permits on 3 active sites. What he found wasn't a man cutting corners. It was a sophisticated system of regulatory fraud that had survived multiple inspection cycles. Environmental violations across 2 sites. Building inspectors with suspiciously flexible interpretations of code. Corporate filings that didn't reconcile with actual costs in ways carrying serious federal implications. I arranged a meeting with Cole under the pretense of a potential partnership. He arrived confident, polished, completely unaware that the man across from him had spent 6 days building a case. I let him talk. I recorded every single word. I want to say something clearly. I am not a vindictive person by nature. I've made hard decisions throughout my career without cruelty. Let good people go because numbers required it. Taken losses that set the company back and kept moving without bitterness. That's who I am on a normal day. But there is another version of me that surfaces when something I've built is under genuine threat. Eli once described it, with the unsettling accuracy of a teenager who studies his father carefully, as Dad going quiet in a scary way. That version doesn't raise his voice, doesn't send emotional messages, doesn't make scenes or speeches or threats. He builds a case. Monday morning, 6 a.m. Eli asleep. Vivian in the guest room. I sat at my desk in the early quiet and made 3 phone calls I had spent the previous week preparing for with complete precision. First call. Federal EPA tip line. Comprehensive documented evidence of environmental violations across Cole Merritt's active project sites. Photographs. Recorded conversations in which he described his regulatory methods explicitly. Permit records that told a story no investigator would struggle to follow. Second call. IRS Criminal Investigations Division. Financial irregularities in Cole's corporate filings. Offshore accounts. Unreported income streams. All sourced organized, and cross-referenced. Third call. Cole Merritt's wife. Her name was Diane. Pediatric nurse. 2 children aged 8 and 11. A woman living the life she believed she had, with complete sincerity, while her husband spent Tuesdays and Thursdays at the Harlan Suites with my wife. She answered on the second ring. I told her my name, why I was calling, that I had documentation she needed before making decisions about her family's future. We met at a coffee shop near her hospital. I laid everything on the table without editorializing. She was calm in the way people are calm when something they've feared but never named is finally confirmed. She asked precise questions, processed the answers without drama. I've been wondering for months, she said quietly. I know, I told her. I'm sorry it took this. She filed for divorce that afternoon. Simultaneously, the federal inquiries hit Cole's office. Investors started calling each other. Business partners created careful distance. His entire world began separating at every seam, at the exact same moment, from every direction at once. No warning, no opportunity to manage the narrative. He didn't see any of it coming. That was precisely the point. Vivian found out on a Wednesday evening. Cole called her barely coherent. Federal agents had executed a search warrant that morning. His wife had filed simultaneously. Investors had pulled out. Accounts frozen. Partners gone. Everything dismantled in a single day with no warning and no explanation he could make sense of. She sat in the living room of the house I had spent 15 years paying for and looked at me across the room with an expression I had never seen on her face in 16 years of marriage. Not anger. Not defiance. Just the full unmediated weight of consequence. Arriving all at once, with nowhere left to deflect it. You did this, she said. He did this to himself, I told her. I just made sure it landed on him instead of me. The divorce moved efficiently. Claire's restructuring placed Croft & Sons completely beyond any settlement claim. The prenuptial agreement we'd signed 16 years ago, which Vivian had apparently not reviewed during her months of careful planning, contained an infidelity clause that voided her equitable distribution rights almost entirely. She received a settlement covering basic stability. Nothing more. The penthouse. The new life. The exit strategy funded by my 15 years of work. All of it gone. Completely and permanently. Cole received 22 months in federal prison. Environmental fraud. Additional civil liability dismantled his company entirely. Diane relocated their children across the country and rebuilt quietly with genuine dignity. Cole was released after 16 months. No company. No reputation. No path back into this industry. I haven't thought about him in over a year. The hardest part was never the betrayal. When it was finally fully known, the betrayal had a strange cleanness. Something broken, identified, removed. The hardest part was Eli. 15 years old when his mother moved into a small apartment across town. 15 when he processed, without the equipment any teenager should need for it, what had happened inside the family he believed was solid. He didn't collapse. He didn't rage. He got quieter for about 6 weeks. More internal. More watchful. Then one Saturday morning he came into the kitchen while I was making coffee. Sat down across from me at the table. I want to learn how the business actually works. All of it. I poured him a coffee. Sat down. Then let's start Monday, I said. And we did. 3 years later. Croft & Sons now employs 340 people across 3 states. The Mill Haven waterfront development contract, landed last spring after 8 months of competitive work to win it, is the largest single project in the company's history. The kind of contract that changes what a business believes about itself going forward. Ray manages the finances with the same precision he has brought for 20 years. Eli comes in on weekends and school breaks, learning operations with a focused seriousness that makes me proud in a way I can't fully put into words without embarrassing myself. He is going to be better at this than me. I've accepted that completely. That is not a small thing to say about your own son. It is the truest compliment I know how to give. Vivian works as an administrative coordinator at a medical supply company now, rebuilding slowly and honestly in a way she never had to before. We communicate about Eli with the civil efficiency of two people who share something important and nothing else. She is a consistent and present mother to both her children. I give her full credit for that without reservation. Clara is 2 years old and has nothing to do with the choices her parents made. She deserves stability and love, and from everything I can see she is getting both. Cole Merritt exists somewhere in the margins of whatever remains after federal prosecution and complete professional destruction. I don't think about him. He is not relevant to anything I am building. 8 months after the divorce finalized, a woman named Petra moved 3 streets over. Structural engineer. Relocated for a city infrastructure project. We met at a community planning meeting about the waterfront development. She asked sharp technical questions about load distribution and foundation strategy, and I found myself enjoying conversation in a way I hadn't expected to enjoy anything for a while. Coffee. Then dinner. Then more dinners. We are careful with each other the way people are careful when they understand precisely what carelessness costs. When they have both held the evidence of it in their hands and chosen something different this time. Something built on accurate information. Genuine choice. Real foundation. It is not a fairy tale. It is considerably better than that. I think about that ultrasound sometimes. Marcus Webb told me the truth when silence would have been easier for everyone in that room. That kind of honesty is rarer than it should be. I built this company on one non-negotiable principle. Structural integrity is not optional. A building either holds under pressure or it reveals it was never built to hold. The same is true of a marriage. The same is true of a person. Vivian built something beautiful on a cracked foundation and hoped I'd never look too closely. I looked. I protected my son. I protected what I built. And then I got back to work. That is all I have ever known how to do. And it has never once let me down. Thank you for watching.